All right, so you're ready for a deep dive into Easter, and I have to say you've brought some really interesting sources with you, like Wikipedia and the World History Encyclopedia.
It's going to be fun.
Yeah, this is going to be good. We've got a lot to uncover here, going way beyond, just the Easter bunny and chocolate eggs.
It's true. Easter has so much more to it than a lot of people realize. It's really a fascinating mix of pagan traditions, Jewish observances, and Christian beliefs.
Right, and it's all kind of woven together over centuries.
Exactly.
And that's what I find so intriguing about it. It's not just a single story,
Yeah.
It's layers upon layers of history and symbolism.
Yeah.
Just looking at the name Easter itself, we can already see those multiple threads.
Yeah, for sure. So we get the name Easter from Ostri, an Anglo-Saxon goddess
Oh, wow.
who is associated with spring and new beginnings. And there's an 8th century monk named Bede who wrote about April being called Easterminathum, which basically means Ostri's month,
Right.
a time for feasts and celebrations.
So the name itself points to those ancient roots. But then, of course, we also call it Pascha.
Right, Pascha comes from the Aramaic and Hebrew words for Passover. And this connection to Passover is really key because it links Easter directly to Jewish tradition and the Exodus story.
So we've got these two seemingly different origins converging in this one holiday. It makes you wonder how those early Christians reconciled those influences.
Well, early Christians saw Jesus as fulfilling the Jewish Passover.
Yeah.
During Passover, the sacrifice of a lamb commemorates freedom from slavery. And early Christians viewed Jesus as the ultimate sacrificial lamb.
Right.
His death atoning for humanity's sins.
So it's almost like they were building upon those existing traditions, reinterpreting them through the lens of their own beliefs.
Exactly. And this wasn't always a smooth process. Just look at the debates about when to actually celebrate Easter. This caused some real friction in the early church.
Yeah, I read about the quarter deciman controversy. It sounds very intimidating, but it boils down to a pretty fundamental disagreement
It really does.
about when to celebrate.
Some early Christians believed that Easter should be celebrated on Nisan 14 of the Hebrew calendar, aligning with the Jewish Passover.
Okay.
Others insisted on the Sunday following.
So it was more than just a calendar dispute.
It really was. It was about how to understand the relationship between Christianity and its Jewish roots.
Right.
How closely should they be tied together?
Yeah.
They eventually tried to unify the date at the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, setting a common rule. The first Sunday after the first full moon after the vernal equinox.
So problem solved. Everyone on the same page.
If only it were that simple. Differences in calendar systems, specifically the Julian versus the Gregorian, continued to cause discrepancies, even leading to Easter being celebrated on different days in Eastern and Western Christianity.
Wow. So that debate wasn't just a historical footnote. It had a real impact on how Easter is celebrated even today.
For sure.
It really highlights those different interpretations and layers of tradition we were talking about.
It does. And speaking of layers, we can't forget about Lent. Those 40 days leading up to Easter.
Yeah.
It's a time of reflection, fasting, and spiritual preparation for many Christians.
Right, 40 days mirroring the time Jesus spent fasting in the wilderness. It's a pretty intense period of self-examination.
Yeah.
But then you've got Shrove Tuesday, which seems like the complete opposite.
Yeah, Shrove Tuesday, or as some people call it, Mardi Gras or Fat Tuesday, is all about using up those rich foods like eggs and butter and fat before the fasting of Lent begins. And so you get these traditions like pancake feasts and general indulgence.
It's interesting how those traditions are so intertwined. You have this period of solemnity and reflection with Lent, but it's bookended by this almost carnival-like atmosphere of Shrove Tuesday and then the celebrations of Easter itself.
It speaks to that cyclical nature that we see throughout Easter, death and rebirth, darkness and light indulgence and penitence. It's all connected.
And those cycles seem to be reflected even in the smallest details, like the use of ashes on Ash Wednesday,
right,
the first day of Lent.
Yeah. Ashes symbolize mourning and repentance. A reminder of our mortality and the need for spiritual renewal. And that imagery resonates across both Jewish and Christian traditions.
Yeah, it does. It makes you realize how deeply intertwined those practices are, even with their distinct beliefs. But you know what else I find fascinating about Easter? Those iconic symbols, the eggs and the bunny, they have their own unique stories to tell.
Absolutely. They might seem like simple child-friendly symbols, but there's a lot more to them than meets the eye.
Let's start with those brightly colored eggs. I know they're a big part of Easter, but I'm curious about how they became associated with the holiday in the first place.
Well, eggs have been a symbol of spring and new beginnings for centuries. long before Christianity.
Oh, wow.
Ancient cultures saw them as representations of fertility and the promise of life returning after a long winter.
So that symbolism predates Easter by a long shot.
It does. But it was early Christians in Mesopotamia who first connected eggs specifically to Easter. They stained eggs red to symbolize the blood of Christ shed during his crucifixion. It's a powerful image that links the egg to the core beliefs of the holiday.
That makes sense. But today we see Easter eggs in all sorts of colors and designs, not just red. When did that shift happen?
Over time, the tradition evolved. Christians began decorating eggs with various colors and patterns, turning them into works of art. Think of those beautiful Pasanka eggs with their incredibly detailed designs.
Right, those Pasanka are amazing.
Yeah.
They use a batik-like method with wax and dye to create those intricate patterns, right?
Exactly. It's a testament to the creativity and symbolism that became associated with Easter eggs. And it's not just about pretty colors. In many cultures, the designs themselves carry specific meanings, like good luck or warding off evil spirits or symbolizing fertility and abundance.
So it's like a whole language of symbolism right there on an eggshell.
Yeah,
It's amazing how much meaning can be packed into something so seemingly simple.
it is. And let's not forget those lavish jeweled Easter eggs created by the House of Fabergé for the Russian imperial family.
Oh my gosh.
From humble dyed eggs to jeweled masterpieces.
Oh.
It's quite a journey for the Easter egg.
It really shows how traditions can be adapted and reinterpreted across different cultures and social classes. But speaking of adaptation, we can't forget about the modern-day chocolate Easter egg.
Ah, yes, the chocolate egg. A delicious modern twist on an ancient tradition.
I love it.
And those candy-filled plastic eggs are a hit with children, too.
Absolutely. They've become almost synonymous with Easter egg hunts. But you know what I'm really curious about the Easter Bunny? Where does that beloved basket-carrying figure fit into all of this?
The Easter Bunny is a fascinating case because, unlike the egg, its origins are surprisingly recent. It traces back to 17th century Germany, brought to the U.S. by Protestant immigrants.
Really? So not exactly an ancient symbol like the egg.
Not quite, but like the egg, the bunny also has connections to fertility and new life. In some early Christian art, rabbits were even used as a symbol of the Virgin Mary and the virgin birth.
Wow, I had no idea. So the Easter Bunny, despite its more recent origins, actually complements the symbolism of the egg quite nicely. It's all about new beginnings and the arrival of spring.
It is, and it's that blend of ancient symbolism and more modern invention that makes Easter so intriguing. There are so many layers to uncover, and we've just scratched the surface.
That's what I love about these deep dives. There's always something new to discover. But for now, I think it's time to take a break and let our listeners digest all this fascinating information.
Indeed. We'll be back soon to delve deeper into the global traditions and celebrations that make Easter such a unique and enduring holiday.
Sounds good.
All right. Welcome back to our Easter Deep Dive. We've explored the historical roots and symbolism of this holiday, but I'm really eager to learn more about how it's actually celebrated around the world.
Yeah, for a holiday with such diverse origins, it's no surprise that Easter traditions vary widely from country to country. It's like a global tapestry woven with threads of shared beliefs and unique cultural expressions. And I'm guessing those variations go beyond just, the types of Easter eggs people decorate. What are some of the more unique customs you've come across?
Well, in many countries where Christianity is prevalent, Easter is a major public holiday, often extending to Good Friday and Easter Monday, even Maundy Thursday in some places.
So it's a time when families and communities come together to celebrate.
Exactly. And this often means closures for businesses, giving people a chance to, step away from their everyday routines and really focus on the holiday. Take the Nordic countries, for instance. In Denmark, Iceland, and Norway, many businesses give their employees almost a full week off. They call it Easter break.
Wow, a whole week. That's quite a commitment to the holiday.
It is, and they make the most of it. It's a popular time for families to travel often to countryside cottages. In Norway, skiing is a popular activity during this time, so it's a chance to enjoy the last bit of winter before spring really sets in.
That sounds lovely. A real chance to reconnect with nature and family traditions.
It is. And each country has its own unique flavor to the celebrations. In Italy, for example, Easter is one of the biggest holidays of the year, marked by religious processions and special meals. But they also have this centuries-old tradition in Florence called Scoppio del Carro, which translates to explosion of the cart.
Okay, that sounds a little bit more intense than a cottage getaway. What's that all about?
It's quite a spectacle.
Yeah.
Basically, a cart filled with fireworks is ignited in front of the Duomo, the city's cathedral. And if the explosion goes off without a hitch, it's seen as a good omen for the coming year.
Wow, talk about starting the Easter season with a bang.
It definitely adds a unique flair to the celebrations. But even with these diverse customs, there are some common threads that run through many Easter celebrations around the world.
Like Easter egg hunts, those seem pretty universal, at least in places where Easter is celebrated.
Absolutely. They're a fun way for children to participate in the festivities, searching for hidden eggs filled with treats. It's like a playful embodiment of the themes of new life and discovery that Easter represents.
And it's not just a homegrown tradition. I know here in the U.S., the White House even hosts an annual Easter egg roll on the South Lawn.
That's right. And it's a tradition that goes all the way back to the 19th century. It's become a real symbol of spring with music games and, of course, lots of colorful eggs.
It sounds like a great way to bring people together and celebrate the season. But are there any traditions that are a little less well known? Perhaps even a little unusual to someone who's only familiar with the typical Easter egg hunts and chocolate bunnies?
There are definitely some lesser-known customs that might surprise you. For example, in some parts of Europe, there's a tradition called Easter whipping.
Whipping. Okay, that sounds a little intense for a springtime celebration.
It's not what you might think. It's a folk custom where boys playfully whip girls with willow branches decorated with ribbons.
So it's not meant to be harmful.
Not at all. It's more symbolic, associated with springtime renewal, and thought to bring good health and fortune to the girls. And in some places, the girls even get to whip the boys back on Easter Monday.
That's interesting. I've never heard of that tradition before. It just goes to show how much depth and variety there is to Easter celebrations around the world.
It does. And it reminds us that even seemingly unusual customs often have layers of symbolic meaning tied to the themes of spring fertility and renewal that are central to the holiday.
It seems like there's always more to learn, even about traditions we think we're familiar with.
Exactly. Easter is a celebration that's constantly evolving, blending ancient beliefs with modern expressions. And that's part of what makes it so fascinating.
Speaking of evolving traditions, what about the way we see Easter eggs themselves changing over time? We talked about those early red-dyed eggs and the intricate pisanka, but there's been a whole evolution in how those symbols of new life are represented, hasn't there?
You're absolutely right. The humble Easter egg has gone through quite a transformation over the centuries. It's a great example of how traditions adapt to changing times and tastes while still holding on to their core symbolism.
Let's dive into that evolution a bit further. What are some of the key shifts you've observed in the way Easter eggs are created and presented today?
Well, as we discussed earlier, those early Christians in Mesopotamia dyed eggs red to symbolize the blood of Christ. It was a simple but powerful act that connected the egg to the heart of their belief.
Right, and it's fascinating how that practice spread and transformed as Christianity expanded.
Exactly.
Yeah.
As the tradition evolved, people started experimenting with different colors and designs, turning those eggs into genuine works of art. Think of those elaborate pisanka eggs we talked about, with their intricate patterns, created using wax-resist techniques.
It's amazing how much artistry and symbolism can be expressed on such a small canvas. And it's not just about aesthetics. In many cultures, those patterns carry specific meanings, like good luck warding off evil or symbolizing abundance.
Exactly. It's like a whole language of symbolism embedded in those designs. And as the tradition continued to evolve, the materials used to decorate those eggs became more diverse as well.
We've come a long way from simple natural dyes, haven't we?
We have. We see everything from wax to paint to, well, even jewels. Remember those Fabergé eggs made for the Russian czars? They're a testament to how Easter egg decoration reached new heights of luxury and craftsmanship.
It's incredible to think that those opulent jeweled masterpieces were inspired by the humble practice of dyeing eggs red.
It really highlights how traditions can be adapted and reinterpreted across different cultures and social classes. But perhaps the most significant shift in the modern era is the rise of the chocolate Easter egg.
Ah, yes, the chocolate egg. It's definitely a departure from those early red-dyed eggs, but I don't think anyone's complaining.
I think it's safe to say that chocolate has become a beloved part of Easter for many people. And let's not forget those candy-filled plastic eggs that are so popular for Easter egg hunts.
They've become almost synonymous with the holiday, especially for children. It's interesting how the tradition of decorating eggs has evolved alongside our changing tastes and technologies.
It really does reflect how traditions adapt to the times while still retaining their core symbolism.
It's a reminder that traditions aren't static. They're living expressions of culture and belief that continue to evolve with each generation. But I'm curious, are there any other interesting trends or variations you've noticed in the way Easter eggs are presented or celebrated today?
Well, there's a growing interest in sustainable and eco-friendly Easter traditions. People are looking for alternatives to those plastic eggs, opting for more natural materials or reusable options.
That makes sense. It's in line with a broader societal shift towards environmental consciousness.
Exactly. And we also see people getting more creative with their egg decorating. Natural dyes are making a comeback, and there's a focus on using found objects and recycled materials to create unique and personalized designs.
It's like a return to the roots of the tradition, but with a modern twist.
It is, and it speaks to a desire to connect with the deeper meaning of Easter while also being mindful of our impact on the planet.
It's a beautiful example of how traditions can evolve to reflect contemporary values while still honoring their historical significance. But with all this talk of chocolate eggs and decorating, I can't help but think about the more communal aspects of Easter celebrations. What about those events and gatherings that bring people together during this time of year?
You're right, Easter is about more than just individual traditions. It's a time for communities to come together and celebrate, whether through religious services, festive meals, or even those iconic Easter parades.
Ah, yes, the Easter parades. I've always loved those. They're such a vibrant expression of spring and the spirit of the holiday.
They truly are. Those parades, especially those we see in cities like New York, are filled with colorful floats, marching bands, and people dressed in their finest spring attire. It's a chance for people to show off their creativity and celebrate the arrival of spring in style.
And of course, we can't forget those Easter bonnets. It's like a friendly competition to see who can create the most elaborate and eye-catching headwear.
It's a delightful spectacle. But beyond the fashion and entertainment, Easter parades also offer a sense of community and shared celebration. They bring people together from all walks of life to enjoy the festive atmosphere and mark the beginning of a new season.
It's a wonderful reminder that Easter is a holiday for everyone, regardless of their background or beliefs.
Exactly. It's a time to celebrate life, hope, and the beauty of spring. And as we conclude this part of our deep dive, I encourage you to consider the many ways Easter is celebrated around the world and how those traditions reflect both our shared humanity and our unique cultural expressions.
It's been a fascinating journey so far. From the ancient roots of the holiday to the modern-day twists on those traditions, there's so much depth and richness to uncover. But before we wrap up this deep dive completely, I think we need to circle back to the core message of Easter, the message that resonates beyond the bunnies, the eggs, and even the chocolate.
I agree. At its heart, Easter is a celebration of hope renewal and the promise of new beginnings. These themes transcend religious boundaries, speaking to a universal human longing for transformation and a brighter future.
I'm ready to explore that deeper meaning. Let's delve into the heart of Easter and see what insights we can uncover. We've covered a lot of ground in our deep dive into Easter, from the origins of the holiday to the evolution of its traditions. But I think it's important to kind of step back and consider the deeper meaning of Easter. The message that resonates beyond the eggs and the bunnies and even the chocolate.
Yeah, at its heart, Easter is a celebration of hope renewal and the promise of new beginnings. And these are themes that transcend religious boundaries, really. They speak to a universal human longing for transformation and a brighter future.
And that's what I find so compelling about Easter. It's not just a celebration of a historical event, but it's a reflection of something deep within the human spirit. This idea of overcoming adversity, of emerging from darkness into light.
Exactly. Whether you approach Easter from a religious perspective or you simply appreciate the springtime symbolism, there's something powerful about those themes of rebirth and renewal. It's like a reminder that even in the face of, challenges and setbacks, there's always that possibility of a fresh start.
And that message seems particularly relevant in today's world, doesn't it? I mean, we're facing so many complex issues, from climate change to social injustices to global conflicts. It can feel very overwhelming at times.
It can.
Mm-hmm.
But Easter offers a counter-narrative to that sense of despair. It reminds us that change is possible, that even in the darkest of times, there's always hope for a brighter tomorrow.
And that hope isn't passive, right? It's not about just waiting for things to get better.
Right.
It's about actively working towards positive change, both in our own lives and in the world around us.
I think that's a really key point. Easter isn't just about, celebrating new beginnings. It's about embracing the potential for transformation and growth. It's a call to action, an invitation to participate in that ongoing process of renewal and rebirth.
And that process can take many forms, right? It might be about personal growth, overcoming personal challenges, or working to make a difference in our communities and in the world.
Absolutely. The beauty of Easter's message is that it can be applied on so many levels. It's about recognizing that potential for positive change within ourselves, and then extending that outwards to create a more just and compassionate world.
So whether we're attending a sunrise service or participating in a community cleanup or simply spending time with loved ones, Easter is an opportunity to reflect on those themes of hope and renewal and to find ways to bring them into our own lives.
That's a great way to put it. It's about taking that spirit of Easter, that sense of possibility and transformation, and letting it inspire us to act, to create, and to build a better future for ourselves and for generations to come.
And I think that's a perfect note to end on. We've explored the history, the traditions, and the deeper meaning of Easter, and I hope this deep dive has given you a fresh perspective on this fascinating holiday.
It's been a pleasure sharing these insights with you. And as we conclude our exploration, I encourage you to embrace the spirit of Easter not just during the holiday itself, but throughout the year. May it serve as a reminder that hope, renewal, and the possibility of positive change are always within our reach.
Thank you for joining us for this Easter deep dive. We'll be back soon with more explorations into the fascinating world of history, culture, and ideas.